Peace, love, knowledge, and freedom, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Just Seen podcast. Today we're going to be talking about toxic relationships. Although we have like multiple realms of toxic relationships, you have familial, you have platonic and intimate, but I think we're more so today. I'm gonna more so stick to the gears of like a relationship, the conventional one. You know, where between significant others and shit. You feel me? So, um, it's been a very very touchy thing a lot of times because a lot of times we think toxic relationships are always inherently bad, or when we equate a toxic relationship, we equate it to a bad person. Sometimes that's not always the case. Toxic relationships can be created through two good people, and the toxicity just comes out because of the way they bring it out of each other, the way the connection actually transpires to make it bad. In essence, like two good things can come together to create something bad if those good things are in opposition to each other, which kind of brings me to the point of the subtitle, being the effects of opposites attracting. That is a common theme that we establish our relationships on. If we say opposites attract, or I want somebody who's opposite of me and shit like that. I think, me personally, I feel like that shit is backwards, and it makes no sense because why would you want somebody who's not like you? But then that raises other issues and shit like that. Issues that I'm of course going to talk about in the actual podcast. So if you caught last week's episode, what was it? Chakras, the breaking of the seven seals. This is kind of going to segue, or not segue. It's going to piggyback off of that. It's going to piggyback particularly off of the first, well, not the first three, but it's going to piggyback off of your solar plexus chakra and your sacral chakra. Those 2 points are very, very heavy in connecting with our relationships. And then we have blockages in them. If we don't understand those energies and what they represent for ourselves, our relationships can ultimately turn out toxic. And like I said, you can very well be experiencing or be wanting to have a positive outcome with someone, and you can be a good person. They could be a good person too, and a toxic relationship can still develop, and I personally feel like it's going to develop off of those two principles and those 2 points. But as I said, I'm going to go over it. We're going to piggyback off of where we left off at from the chakras. If you haven't heard it yet, you can always, go back and check it out. I ain't deleting shit. So with that being said, I don't want to waste any more time. I want to kind of get straight into it. So, as always, follow me on Instagram, _just_seen_. Follow the Just Seen podcast at the Just Seen podcast. Be sure to follow the merchandise at Just Seen's merch, also on Instagram. And be sure to follow the Hitting It Raw program if you are trying to transition into the plant-based lifestyle. Also, be sure to get the books. So Frail, a Reality to Black Male Masculinity. So Frail 2, Toxic Femininity, and Hitting It Raw, Living the Raw Plant-Based Lifestyle for Life. Everything that I just mentioned is in the description of your podcast, so you can always click that to go directly to it. So with that being said, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back to jump into toxic relationships, the effects of opposites attracting. Oh yeah, and don't forget to visit IamJustSeen.com. There, you can get all things Just Seen. You want to add the So Frail series to your library? Visit IamJustSeen.com. You want to learn how to master the market for serious trading and investing? Visit IamJustSeen.com. You want to get your hands on some exclusive merch like tees, hoodies, coffee mugs, hats, bags? Visit IamJustSeen.com. Are you thinking about transitioning into the plant-based lifestyle? Visit IamJustSeen.com. You ever want to just chat with Seen about anything from simple advice to mentorship? Visit IamJustSeen.com. Anything and everything that is me, you can find at IamJustSeen.com. So just take a quick peek into my world and see why being just seen is nothing less but always more. Because you never really know what you need until you see it. You will never see it unless you visit IamJustSeen.com. All right, welcome back. So first things first, like I said, we'll do a quick recap on the chakras because, as I said, this is a piggyback off of those because I personally feel like understanding your chakra energy, understanding what those energies represent, are very, very crucial in having successful relationships. And I think not knowing them or even having blockages within them are the reasons why our relationships don't work. Um, so as I said, the two, when it comes to relationships, two of the focal points of chakra energy are your sacral and your solar plexus chakra, right? Your sacral chakra governs your feelings and your sexuality. Your solar plexus chakra governs your personal identity. Um, these are very important because it's like when you really consider it, how can we truly have a relationship with someone if we're not in tune with our emotions? I mean, not our emotions, our feelings. If you pay attention to the last podcast, you know why I said that. Um, why? How can we truly establish a solid relationship based off of overcoming, our feelings and truly mastering them and knowing what they represent for us, and then not knowing who we are? Like we get into a lot of relationships and we don't know who the fuck we are yet. You know, that's very detrimental and it's hindering because it's like, how can you, like, you're not guaranteed, like you can't be in a healthy relationship, you can't be in a long-term relationship successfully if you don't know who you are, because then it's like you have to really consider how did you and this person manage to cross paths. We call it vibes, we call it frequencies, we call it connection, whatever the hell it is that we choose to call it. We have to really sit and look at it as the reality of what it is. If you don't know who you are, how can you be in a relationship with somebody? You feel me? Like, I get a lot of times, the storyline is cool, having a relationship where, we found ourselves with each other. Our journey took the turn of growth, but that's some movie shit. That's few and far in between, because on the other side of that, so many of us get into relationships not knowing ourselves, and then we continue to not know ourselves. We just become, I ain't gonna say a figment of imagination, but we become a figment of somebody else's imagination. We find out what they like, what they want to be involved with, and we try to make ourselves be that. You know what I mean? Especially like women are more notorious for it, and I'm only using notorious just for lack of better term. It's not necessarily a negative thing. But women are more known for adjusting their life and adjusting themselves to accommodate the men that they're with. You feel me? Um, but it's like, how can you, like, if you really knew yourself, how could you be involved with that? Because then we go down the line, years down the line, and we get caught up in shit like, I lost myself, or I'm unfulfilled. I wasn't able to give and do everything for myself, um, or even evolve the way that I wanted to. And so because of that, we kind of set up our relationships off of that, And like I said, it goes back into the chakra energy. So I am going to add the root chakra into that because that's very, very important, because the root chakra is our foundation. We literally, in real time, we establish our relationships off of foundational shit. Like, we try to establish long-term relationships off basic foundation. The cliche, if a man can provide and protect, the woman will be with him. If the woman can nurture and sustain, the man will be with her. That's basic though. Like, you feel what I'm saying? Like, it's basically like, social media is littered with, some people call them the pick me type, or whatever the case may be. But pick me has no gender. You have the people who will express how solid they are within their foundation, and they'll say shit like, how many people can say they do X, Y, and Z, da 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 da, and then it's like, I'll wait, or some shit like that. It's like, yo, you're talking about basic foundational shit. Everybody should know how to cook and clean. that's you don't get any brownie points for that shit. Like, that's not a trait. You feel me? That's not a relationship builder. You feel me? Oh, I can cook clean and keep it, like, so what? So what? Because then what? You feel me? Man, I pay bills, okay? Then what? You feel me? But we're so stuck on solidifying our relationships like that, so that once we start getting involved, and then it's like, that's why I always say the idea of love that we have today is just an amalgamation of lust, infatuation, admiration, and desire. It's not really love, because I say that because it's like, now this is going to start to segue into the second chakra energy, because it's like, once that foundational shit is set and we pretty much interrogated the motherfucker, like, we don't really get to know each other. We pretty much interrogate each other. And after we interrogate the motherfucker and we say, okay, you know what? You fit my checklist. So because you fit my checklist, I can rock with you. But then that goes into the next point, and where the emotion, the feelings, and the sexuality is. If there's a blockage there, it's going to be off. This is why emotions are easily exploited. Because like, once that root chakra energy, and that foundation is set, it's like we segue into being able to fuck somebody. Like, if you meet all these requirements, we can fuck. And then it's like, those are the levels to it. And it's crazy because it's like, if we haven't uncovered or unblocked our sacral chakra, right, which is our feelings and everything. So this is why it's like, from the men's side, we're not even taught to deal with our feelings. Like, that's so taboo. We don't even really deal with them. We keep them to ourselves. And in the last So Frail conversations I was talking about, we only dwell on emotions of anger, rage, and aggression if we are going to dwell on any emotions, because that's what society permits for us, right? We just don't want to channel it through sports or some shit. You know what I mean? But women, on the other hand, they're allowed to tap into their emotions and feel them. But in that same breath, it's not most, but a lot of women have not tapped into understanding their emotions or their feelings. They haven't tapped into understanding their feelings truly. So what happens is, when two people come together and they're meeting off of just basic survival, he can protect and provide, she can nurture and sustain. The one who can tap into the emotions better will be the leader of that relationship. The one who can control the emotions of the other will be the leader of that relationship. So, I talked about triggers. A lot of times we think, when we consider triggers, we always anticipate that they're negative things and they're triggered to bad emotions. No, you have positive triggers too that make you feel the positive emotions. And if you're not in tune with your feelings and you have not mastered them, any person at will can have the trigger to all of your feelings. And if they have the trigger to all of your feelings, they can control you. They can manipulate you over time. You feel what I'm saying? So when it comes to that energy, we have to first overcome the root together, like not together, but like be in a position to where the foundation is solidified and everything's cool. That root chakra energy is mastered. Then we have to master the sacral chakra energy, because it's like, if your feelings are not controlled, you can be manipulated. This is why it's like, fuck boys get a rap, because of course the fuck boys, but the real reason why a fuckboy truly gets a rap is because he knows how to tap into a woman's emotions and use them to his will. He can bend a woman to his will when her emotions are, intact. And don't get it twisted, because women could do the same thing. If that man does not know how to use his emotions because he's never spent time practicing them, you can get the cold-hearted women who have truly mastered their emotions and they just manipulate people. They manipulate dudes. Like, he can go down that same route to be controlled, and they're doing whatever he wants to do. But these come from developing and trying to establish a relationship without understanding sacral energies, which is the point of not understanding our feelings, not being able to rationalize our feelings and understand what we feel, because to rationalize your feelings is to understand what the triggers are. You dig what I'm saying? And if you understand what the triggers are, you control that. So now okay, when I'm in a relationship, I need to be in a relationship that provides me with this type of connection, because I know what is going to make me upset. I know what is going to make me happy. I know what is going to, make me frown. I know what is going to make me smile. You feel me? And now I go towards what's going to stimulate the triggers that I want to give me a positive life. You feel me? So that's the sacral part. But even still, and then once you uncover that, then you're able to go into the solar plexus energy, which is about your personal identity. So many of us are in relationships and we don't even know who we are. Like we're in relationships trying to explore another person without even knowing who we are yet first. You feel me? So it's like this person may be somebody that we're not even supposed to be with. A lot of times, that is the case, you know. And when breakups happen, we forget to we lose sight of what that relationship was really for. That relationship was to get you back to your personal identity, to get you to see who you really are. You feel me? But we see an ended relationship as a failed relationship. Not every relationship is successful in its own right. Should you choose to see, because we want every relationship to take us to the very end, to death. No, that's not necessarily the case. But it is the case metaphorically, because it's going to be to the death of that relationship, till you are no longer able to be the person that you are, that was able to resonate with the energy space for that relationship's viability. You feel me? But the more that you know yourself, the more you're in tune with your personal identity, the longer you can get a relationship, the longer your relationships can run. You feel me? Because you got to also consider there's a point of actually involving yourself with the relationship through love and tolerance. And a lot of time we establish our relationships built off of tolerance, how much I can tolerate. But see, like I said, that goes down into your root chakra energy. That's not even sacral, that's root chakra energy, to where my relationship is based off of just tolerance, survival and tolerance. You feel me? What can I put up with from you to solidify whether I can stay with you or not? Then that goes into other things like boundaries and shit, but that's a whole different conversation. I think this could probably segue into a part 3 based off of that. But when your personal identity is not known, like how do you know what your relationship is supposed to be like? Because our relationships are supposed to be mirror reflections of ourselves in some way, shape, or form. You feel what I'm saying? So how can you truly know what you're looking at? How can you truly know what it is that you're truly connecting with if you're not in a space of acknowledging who you are, if you're not in a space of knowing what it is that you're supposed to be bringing? Because now you have to figure out what it is that I have, what it is that I lack, what it is that I'm good at, what it is that I'm bad at. What things about me bring out the negative in this person, what things about this person bring out the negative within me. You know what I'm saying? All of that ties hand in hand, and all of that is based off of uncovering and, knowing truly what your solar plexus energy is like. But like I said, I'm not going to dwell too much on that because that was in the previous podcast, but I'm just giving the segue up into the main point. So when our relationship establishes based off of foundation, when we're not in tune with our feelings and we don't really know how to deal with them, and we have no personal identity of who we are, we can easily fall into the trap that society has set for us when it comes to our relationships of opposites attracting. It's such a cliche term and it's such an overly used term, because at the same time, everybody falls for it. It's like opposites attract. That's a very mind fuckish mentality. And I say that because when you truly accept that an opposite attracts from you, then that means you don't even want to be in a relationship with somebody who is the same as you. You feel what I'm saying? Like, that's very pivotal. Like, I've had conversations with women who would ask like what's your type? And I'm big on this concept. Like, when it comes to relationships, for me, I'm big on like mind, like body, like soul. Not the same, but like, in the sense that the only objective for me is that you're able to be yourself 100%, because that's what I'm going to be. You feel what I'm saying? I'm going to be myself 100% regardless of, not necessarily regardless of how you feel by the negative perspective, but from my own personal perspective, regardless of how you feel. Because at the end of the day, if me being myself conflicts with you, I don't need to be with you. If you being yourself conflicts with me, we don't need to be together. Like, it's that simple. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to me trying to adjust and fit into a box that appeases you. No, I'm going to be who I am. And if that appeases you, then cool. But if it's like, I got to constantly make adjustments, you got to constantly make adjustments. Well, I don't like this. I'm like, we need to just come to terms with the fact that, we're just not built for each other. And that's perfectly fine. But some people, because we're so used to establishing and solidifying relationships based off of the root chakra connection, just basic survival. The man you protect and you provide, the woman you nurture and sustain. Just based off of those points, we will say, okay, this person, regardless of what you trigger out of me, feeling wise, regardless of the fact that I don't really know who I am. You feel me? On paper, you fit everything that I'm looking for. So I will tolerate as much as I can in order, and as much as necessary in order to solidify what this foundation is. And that really does nothing for you. So when you go to the opposites attracting thing, it's like you have to really take some inward reflection in on that, because for you to attract to an opposite means that you're not truly connected to who you are, because you don't even want to see yourself in another person. You'd rather see the opposite of yourself in that person, because like I said, our relationships are mirrors. You feel me? Our relationships are mirrors. That person is a reflection of us. That person is a reflection of our essence in some way, shape, or form. So if I'm seeking the opposite of me, you feel me? What does that say about myself? So it's like a lot of times we'll attract to, and it works beautifully in the beginning, because we attract to the opposite. You feel me? But when we talk about chemistry, we can use chemistry from the physical point and from the metaphorical point. But chemistry is like, opposites attract. But when you actually study chemistry, you'll see that opposites attract, but they neutralize each other. That means that net zero reaction has occurred. So no matter how great one is, no matter how weak one is, at some point, there's going to reach a level of equilibrium where nothing can they neutralize each other. You feel what I'm saying? And this is can sometimes be, this is a very bad thing, because the stronger person becomes weaker despite the weaker person being stronger. See, we talk about how, when we consider relationships and we consider things from that perspective, it's always, oh, this person made you better. This person but what did you do to that person? And sometimes in our own, I guess, modesty, we allow ourselves to come down, in the whole conceptualization of being humble, we allow ourselves to come down to elevate this person. But this person doesn't push us. It doesn't push our nozzles up. You feel me? We lose ourselves to make sure this person is better. And it's like that conceptualization, it kind of makes the relationship one-sided. You feel me? The opposites attracting also develops the giver-taker relationship, not a giver-giver relationship. It's one gives, one takes. And the one who's taking the most is the one who's often the most depleted. I know it seems like it's crazy how it's like, well, if they're taking, how can they be depleted? Because they're starting off with zero. That's why they're taking so much. The taker starts off at zero. The giver starts off at 100, and they meet in the middle at 50. You feel me? So it's like, when our relationships are built off of that, when we're trying to make opposites attract, this is what happens. Like, going further, sticking with the chemistry metaphor, you have opposites attracting, but then you have likes dissolve likes. You feel what I'm saying? If you want to dissolve something, you have to use the material that is the same as what you're trying to dissolve. You feel what I'm saying? And what happens is the two things get consumed into one another. So this is why when I was speaking on setting up relationships as like mind, like body, like soul, will dissolve into one another. You feel what I'm saying? We'll dissolve into one another. But if we're trying to be the opposites, then what are we really going to get out of it? What are we really going to get out of that? A neutralization. And like I said, this now ties into the chakras and the sacral chakra specifically with the personal identity. If you don't know who you are, how are you attracting to the opposite? And then how, in the same breath, how will you attract to what's like you? See, what we're doing when we don't know ourselves, when we're involving ourselves in relationships and we don't know who we are, we're experimenting with exploring, traits about ourselves, not the full definition of the essence of who we are, but we're looking for pieces that feel good. See, we establish relationships most times not on growth, but on feeling. This person makes me feel good. See, sacral chakra shit. You feel me? This person makes me feel good. This person makes me feel happy. But at the same time, based off of that being off of feeling, the solar plexus is about being. That's why it's personal identity. What does this person make you be? You know, what does this person make you be? But the thing about that is, like, you have to be in control of your feelings in order to know what you can be and what you should be and what you will be. And that will calibrate you towards more people that can allow you to be, not allow you to feel. You feel what I'm saying? Because feelings create changes, you know. Like I talked to a woman a while back, and she was like, she's tired of being alone. I said, now, are you alone or are you lonely? And she was like, what's the difference? Well, I was like, well, alone is a state of being and lonely is a state of feeling. You know, lonely, you can change that. You know, alone is more solitude. That is a state of being. You feel me? And she was like, well, I have difficulty being alone, which means you have difficulty being. You feel me? Because how do you have difficulty being alone with yourself? Like, we are the one thing, the one being, regardless of what we believe in, regardless of what we come to terms with, we are the one being that we can guarantee has been with us all our lives. Like, every second, every minute of every day, we have been with ourselves. And yet we don't know who we are. Because the societal structure, the societal norms have taught us to decorate ourselves with things that are appealing to catch another person's eye. Never really teaches us to be. You feel what I'm saying? So when we meet this person, if we connect it off of opposites attracting, and then now we're opposites. I like the sun, you like the moon, just off of basic, perspective, and I like the sun, you like the moon, but I don't like spending time at night and you don't like spending time at day. So now we have to compromise. Now we have to come together and say, okay, let me figure out the best way to do this. Somebody's going to fold. Or both people are going to be stubborn and not go through it. Or somebody's going to completely give themselves up. Where I was once a moon person, now I'm spending every day in the sun for this person. Not because I want to, but being around the sun all the time for this particular person. But this person hasn't given up anything to come for the moon. You feel me? So that makes no sense, because now it's like, if your personal identity is to be somebody who's attracted to the moon, or somebody who rocks with the moon, why are you spending so much time in the sun? And granted, this is metaphor, of course. You know what I mean? It's deeper than that shit, but that's a lot of times how relationships are built. You feel me? I was involved with a woman before who she didn't like any of the things that I like. And like blatantly, like she told me that. But it's like, oh man, opposites attract. That just means, the things that I like, I gotta know. That's not what that means. That means that this person is your opposite. They're not gonna like what you like. So why are you trying to force something to be when it can't be? You feel me? But we do it all the time. We do it all the time. And then what's worse, we create children out of shit. We bring families together with families that ain't supposed to be mixing. You know what I mean? Because we're so rooted in the whole opposites attracting thing. But for our opposite to attract, that means there's something within us that we want to deviate from in order to find an opposite, to become something different. You feel what I'm saying? And that's where, like, that's why I was saying, like, I get caught up with the like mind, like body, like soul thing. And, somebody asked me, one of my homies, he said, bro, wouldn't that get boring though? Like, if somebody's just like you, nah, it wouldn't get boring. It wouldn't get boring at all. Like, you feel me? I don't have to second guess or worry about walking on eggshells. I don't have to think about, the negative things that I have to suppress and, hide within myself. I don't have to think about the things that are naturally within me that could be triggers for this person. Because we're so much in tune with each other, because it's like mind, like soul, like body. You feel what I mean? I don't have to, stay on this person. Hey, you should do this. You like, no, it should be a natural rhythm and a natural flow. But I think somehow, somewhere, we've learned to like the friction. We learned to like the friction. And then it has to bring the peace. It has to bring the disharmony in. They teach us that, if it's not hard, then, it's not really a relationship, I guess, or some crazy shit like that. I don't know, but I don't feel like relationships should be that difficult. They shouldn't be that challenging. Like, if the person is a lot like you and you're in tune with yourself and you love yourself, that shit should be very, very simple. Very, very simple. But every relationship that we've been in, every relationship that we say didn't work, every relationship, like, look at that person was likely your polar opposite. All you did was argue. All you did was fuss and fight. Now, it started off good in the beginning, yes, because opposites attract. But then the neutralization started happening. How the person cleans up or didn't clean up. You're a clean person. Like, you got to be really careful with that. Your opposites attracting and you like cleanliness. And then you get with a dirty motherfucker, like, you're compromising. You feel me? And it's like, oh, well, this, like, no. And that's where it now comes into the point where once the opposites attract, now what's considered, what we deem as love, is really tolerance. And now we have to operate through tolerance, because it's like, I don't really like this stuff about you. I don't. But how much can I tolerate based off of what you can provide for me, what you can bring to the table? It shouldn't even be that way. You feel me? But like, that's why when we get into our relationships, we get so lost and we get so damaged when they're over, because it's like, yo, you were neutralized, bro. Sis. Excuse me. You were neutralized. All right. Look. The markets are not a difficult place to understand. All right. You just have to know what you're looking at. And there's 5 things that you need to see before you can make any market entry. First, you need a pocket, so you can know which direction the market is going in. Second, you need a pullback, so you can get the better price. Third, you need a battlefield, so you can see when that market movement is slowing down. Fourth, you need the upper hand, so you can see when the market reactivates. And last, you need a final push, so you can see the exact moment when it's time to go with the direction you are already moving in. Okay? Of course, there's so much more that has to go into that, and it's not as cut and dry as that. But those are things that I teach in my Mastering the Market course. So if you would like to learn more, please visit IamJustSeen.com and check out the Mastering the Market course today. Although it is directed and specialized for Forex, all of the skills, I crafted them to be transferable to any market that you're looking at. So again, visit IamJustSeen.com and check out the Mastering the Market course today if you are truly looking to master the market. Oh yeah, and don't forget, while I still got you, you can use promo code QUARANTINE to save over 90% off of the enrollment of the full price of the course. That is QUARANTINE, QORNTEEN. You feel me? So we look at breakups being, I was left with nothing. Right. Because you attracted to an opposite. Somebody you wasn't even supposed to be built for. But see, what did Wale said, what was it? In that song Bad, I believe it was. He was like, yeah, it was bad. He said, we fiend for what we don't need. You feel me? Like, what kind of construct has been set up to where we go for what's not good for us? And then we end up in these badass situations and shit. And then it's like, okay, that shit, it makes no sense. Like, I get people say, okay, I want somebody who has a wild side. Well, you make sure you have a wild side, because that person's wild side may do you some damage. You feel what I'm saying? Like, if you're a naturally wild person, it makes sense to be with another wild person. But if you're prude and reserved, stop trying to step into that. I want excitement. You don't want excitement. If you can't bring your own excitement to yourself, then you don't need excitement from somebody else, because their excitement level or what gets them excited is going to be something totally different. You feel me? For you, excited might be, crossing the street on a yellow light and trying to run real fast before the lights. You know what I'm saying? That might be exciting for you. Excitement for them might be getting on 90-mile-per-hour roller coasters. And then when they're trying to bring you into your world, it's like, oh, I can't operate from that. That's too much for me. And now they have to scale back. They start to lose themselves. And vice versa. If they got you throwing caution to the wind and you're a very cautious person, eventually you're gonna hurt yourself. You feel me? And then you're gonna want to blame them, but you can't because you chose to assimilate into something that you had no business in. You feel me? So when it comes to that opposites attracting shit, like yeah, that's a whole cliche and a whole fucked up quandary that we get ourselves into. That really makes no sense. We have no business being with somebody who is not like us. But we have to know who we are first in order to know what's like us. You feel what I'm saying? So that's why uncovering and unblocking your chakras and knowing what these energies represent helps you align better with those people that are supposed to be for you. But see, we I think, me personally, I feel like because we don't like, and this goes back into the lonely versus alone thing. We don't like, if a person can't spend time with themselves, be alone with themselves and be content. You feel what I'm saying? I'm not talking about lonely. Like if you're by yourself and then the emotions are coming in and you can't have a good time on your own, you're not alone, you're lonely. But in the state of being alone, you are able to find contentment in all that you do. You're able to chill by yourself and not worry about, like, you're able to go out to eat, go to the movies, go wherever it is, and not feel awkward. You feel what I mean? When I was like 22 or 23, I used to go to the club with one of my homies and shit. And he was like, one day he was like, yo, what you be doing on the weekends? I be going out. He was like, by yourself? I was like, yeah. He was like, yo, I can't go out by myself. I said, why? He was like, cuz, man, it feel awkward. Like, you go out to the club and shit, and then like you by yourself. Don't feel weird? I said, no. I said, if I go out to the club with anybody, I'm still gonna be by myself. Cause when I go in the club, I'm gonna split up from them, and I'm not gonna link up with them till the club is over. He was like, yo, I didn't even think about it like that. I'm like, yeah, because it's like a lot of us don't have that confidence or that ability to feel that we can be by ourselves and still stand firm as if we were with the crowd. So then now that segues into, they say, birds of a feather flock together. Are you really like these birds that you flocking with? Or is it just easier to fly with these birds? Or is it more comfort than flying with these birds? You feel me? But are these birds really like you? Are you an eagle flying with crows? Are you a finch flying with cockatoos? You feel what I'm saying? It's deep like that. Like, just because you can fly doesn't mean you need to be flying with that type of bird. You feel what I'm saying? So we get wrapped up in that shit all the time, and we establish, our relationships not by who we can be. We try to figure out who we can be with rather than who we can be alone with. You feel me? And what I mean by that is, like I said, alone is a state of being. So it's like if we're just in the same room, and there's nothing going on, you're not bored, I'm not bored. You feel what I'm saying? You're not bored, I'm not bored. It's because we're in alignment with each other. And when we're alone, we can be alone together because we're more so connected to our states of being than our states of feeling. You feel me? And we learn how to operate and channel those accordingly. Turn them up, turn them down, turn them off, turn them on whenever we want to, But as long as we're attracted to opposites, the most our relationships can be, we can never really fall in love with somebody. It's hard to fall in love with your opposite. It's even harder when you don't, it's hard to fall in love with your opposite when you don't know who you are, but it's even harder when you do. Because when you do know who you like, you're settling. you know that you're tolerating this relationship. You know that it's just like, okay, I'm going to wait for, like, it's going to get to a point where I just can't take anymore. But why do we do that to ourselves? Why do we do that to ourselves? Because we spend time. Our personal identity is rooted on who we're told to be, who we've been conditioned to be, not who we really are. This is why, like, after 10, 15 years, the divorce rate happens. Like, 10 years is like the divorce rate is getting lower and lower. Motherfuckers keep being on some, what happened to the relationships that lasted 40, 50 years? We got to put that in context because those 40, 50 year relationships, peel back the layers, that was a lot of tolerance. They tolerated a lot. But when you see it, they're all polar opposites. They're all polar opposites. If you listen to their past lives and you listen to the things that they used to do, it's like, how'd y'all even cross paths to meet? Feel me? They neutralize each other. And in the neutrality, fuck it, we might as well stay together. We've been together this long. You feel me? Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes that's a good thing. You know, the violent hothead who can be calmed down. You feel me? That's can sometimes be a good thing. But then sometimes it could be detrimental because you have the calm, free spirit who now becomes the wild heart, but never practiced being wild, but is not naturally a wild person. You feel me? Boundaries, limitations, all of that shit starts to kick in, and this person doesn't know who they are. You know, this person has no idea who they are. So now they become whoever they're told to be. And then we build our relationships off of who we're told to be and not who we really are on the inside. So then shit happens. Somebody will be like, this is not to co-sign the shit, but this is why cheating is so easy. You feel me? You cheat with somebody who is a lot like you. You know, and then that puts another thing. Cheating lets you know that relationships are a game. Relationships are a game, and the challenge is why we're in opposition to each other. Man versus woman, or person versus person. However the fuck y'all looking at the shit. Whatever. But this is why cheating is so, because it sets up the entire system of relationships now set up in the realm of a game. Opposites attract. You feel me? So opposites are going to be in opposition to one another in some way, shape, or form. If I feel like I'm losing this game, because that's what the relationship develop into, a game. Once the opposites attract, you know, I got to chase you. I got to put in this work. I got to do all of these things to get you, and whatever the case may be. But if I feel like I'm losing, I'm going to cheat. That's that's like a natural, not even from a relationship perspective, but if somebody's feeling like they're losing, they're going to cheat to win. You feel me? Look at a fight. If I get beat up 1-on-1, I'm going to either come back with a gun, or I'm going to come back with my homeboys. It's like, you're not going to beat me again. You feel me? I got to cheat to win. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing. If I feel like I'm losing this game, then I'm going to cheat. I'm always going to stay ahead. So it's like, but see, cheating is so easy to happen because, you know, and a lot of times I hear women always ask this. I've heard my brothers ask it too. Like, yo, what did that person have that I ain't have? They had the reflection. You were the opposition. You feel me? Like, it's like, how is it so easy to cheat? How could you just throw away years of all of this shit? Because in that brief moment, that the person they cheated with, chances are they saw themselves. You know, with the person that they decided to settle down with, have kids with, they always saw the opposite. But for the first time, they saw the same, even if for a small glimpse. You feel what I'm saying? And then, you know, the seduction happens because of that. Seduction is real easy to do when you're not trying to target the opposite side of a person, but you're catering to the likeness. When you cater to the likeness of a person, it's easy to seduce them. That's a whole different conversation, whole different topic, but I'm saying how it's so easy to cheat and be cheated on. You feel me? Because you're being cheated on by somebody who's complete opposite from you. It makes it easy. You know, it makes it easy. But where the problem comes in is like, it's the front. Because people are always going to put up the likeness in the beginning. And then once the likeness drops, once the infatuation dissipates and it's gone, everything else starts to resurface again. You feel me? Everything else starts to resurface. It comes back to light. And then coming back to light, it's like, yo, you're not who I thought you were when I first met you. Well, I mean, shit, everybody's on a good behavior at the beginning of a relationship when you don't have that personal identity. Because you don't want to trigger the feelings that can make that person leave you alone. You don't want to trigger the feelings that can repel that person away from you. So I'm only going to trigger the good shit. It's all manipulation. At the end of the day, it's like, I'm only going to trigger the good shit that makes you say, oh my gosh, you get me. It's so, you understand, like, yo, that's not the case. You feel me? I know our opposites attract, you know, but at the same time, I'm only going to show you what's going to keep us attracted. I'm not going to show you the shit that repels you. You feel me? I'm not going to show you that shit. Because everybody wants to be on their best behavior until they get comfortable. Why not be comfortable from the beginning? But in order to be comfortable in a relationship from the beginning, you got to be comfortable with yourself. You feel me? So if you are not in tune, if you are not aware of all of this, coming into a relationship, like I said, even if you're a good person and they're a good person, that's still going to be toxic in the end. You two are going to bring the bad out of each other. It's as optimistic as you want to be, you know, if your relationship is built solely off a foundation and you have not understood your feelings, what triggers you, what doesn't trigger you, how like that person then can't get to you, then you have your personal identity intact. Chances are, like, if you got your personal identity intact and you truly know who you are, you probably wouldn't have dated some of the people that you dated. Had you have had those lessons in the beginning. You feel what I'm saying? That's very, very important because we've been trained and conditioned to have relationships like that. You feel me? Give me somebody that's completely different. Like when I was in undergrad, like I came from like a street life, but I also had the academic prowess with me. You feel what I mean? Like, so for some people say it's book smarts or street smarts, how they want to put it. But I function well in both. You feel what I'm saying? So for the book smart women, but it's like being that I function well in both, they both came out evenly. You feel what I mean? Like, you feel me? I don't like, I can still articulate my messages the way I need to articulate them, but I do it by saying what the fuck I want to say. Like, you feel me? And I speak within the lingo, the jargon of that area, that upbringing. You feel what I'm saying? So I don't necessarily speak from the academic perspective, but at the same time, it's such a balanced perspective that it's like, you know, I seen the greatest quote that I've seen, the greatest comment I seen based off of that was, I'm too hood for academia, but I'm too street. No, I'm too, what is it? I'm too hood for academia, but I'm too smart for the streets or some crazy shit like that. But whatever the case is, like, that's the part of the balance. So, you know, the women who were in that academia area, they like me for not even like what they should have been like before. It's like, yo, because we're both in the same academic space. But it's like, nah, I like you because of this part. You feel what I'm saying? The street side. That's the part that I like. But then I had the street style women who's like, yo, I like you because you're intelligent, you're smart. You feel me? It's like, yeah, I can see that. But then it becomes problematic because when that side doesn't dilute itself, when that side doesn't drop, it's like, damn, I thought you were this, I thought you were that. No, you know, you were attracted to that one part that you didn't like within yourself, or that was not available in you, and you felt that you wanted it, and you shouldn't have, because opposites attract and they're going to neutralize each other. For me to maintain that level of, you know, of self, and then in my, like, you're going to see some things you might not want to see. Like, for real, you know, and that's off of both sides. Or you're going to see things that you can't tolerate. Like, off that same token, like, I had homies who were like, yo, bro, let me know when they have a party up. No. Y'all cannot come up here when I'm partying. Because it's a different type of party. Like, I'm partying with people that are on scholarships, and, you know, they're majoring, they have their goals where they need to be. You feel me? Not to shit on anybody that I grew up with, but at the same time, it's like, if you come up here, you the type, like, I knew homies that were Bloods. So if they would have came to a party that the Kappas were hosting, it would have been a fight. But it would have been on my head. You feel what I'm saying? It would have been a fight solely off the fact that, I guess, when the Kappas throw up the diamond, the Blood would have felt offended by that. Like, nigga, you ain't no Blood. What? And then the Blood throwing it like, you're not a Kappa. Like, all right, the signs are similar, but they're not the same. It's different things like that. Y'all wear the same color. So it's like those dynamics play into it. So now, when we tie this into relationships, this is what we go for. We go for somebody who's completely opposite from what we are, because we want that thrill. We want that excitement. If you're boring, be boring. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Just find another boring person to be boring with. If you're exciting, be exciting. Find another person to be excited with, but don't try to dilute yourself and try to dumb down your experience of who you really are and what your personal identity really is to accommodate somebody else, because you don't really know who you are. You dig what I'm saying? You're not really attuned to what your truest essence really is, you know? And like I said, that's how things become toxic. That's how things become toxic, because the initial phase is not, the toxic relationship is never really bad from the beginning. This is why it's like, yo, it felt so good when we first connected, when we first linked. We were doing this, we were doing that, everything was on point. You feel me? But then once we got comfortable with each other, things changed. Nah, you started to neutralize each other. You started to neutralize each other. You started to neutralize each other, and the tolerance went down. Like the tolerance that you have for each other, the ability to see past the flaws. Like I saw past this. Everybody says it all the time after the breakup. Like all the stuff that I put up with for you, and I saw past this, and I shouldn't have, and this, then the third. That's your fault because opposites attracted. So when the opposites attracted, in order to make this work, you had to continue to see beyond the fact that you were being neutralized, and you two were neutralizing each other. But then on a coin flip to that, we'll say things like, I want to marry my best friend and attract to an opposite. You can't. Think about your circle, and think about your closest friends right now. All of you guys are very similar in some way, shape, or form. So it's like, do you really want to marry your best friend, or do you want to have the best friendly connection you can have with somebody who's your polar opposite? And then you're establishing with your polar opposite because you in essence don't know who you are. Not only do you not know who you are, you have not accepted who you are in order to find people that are more like you. You feel me? But then it's like to have that mentality to believe that, I can't be with somebody who's just like me. That means you can't be alone. And if you can't be alone, you don't need to be in a relationship anyway. You feel what I'm saying? If you can't be alone, you don't deserve, I ain't gonna say deserve, you shouldn't be in a relationship anyway. Because that's what it's all about. Like being alone is a state of being. You have to learn how to be yourself first before you can be yourself with somebody else. We're so busy. We've learned to be with people, but we've never learned to be ourselves with people. You feel what I mean? So it's like you have those people when you have those people who can be themselves anywhere they go. If they don't fit within what your identity sets, you'll look at them some type of way. Like when I went to college, and a lot of the people that came from the hood that went to college first time or whatnot, they still had that energy about them, to where it's like, oh, this person a wild out, this person's active and all of that. And like the talented 10th, that's what I'm gonna call that. I'm gonna use that for this. The talented 10th will look at them like, oh, they're ghetto, or they wild and they just like that. But in the same breath, they admire that same energy, because it's all in the music, it's all in the dress, it's all in everything. But it's just the person is exhibiting that, and it's an aspect that you really don't want to deal with. You feel what I'm saying? So we get into these relationships like that, and we establish them off that same energy, And high key, I think maybe sometimes we do want to get in oppositions because it can create a superiority complex within us, especially if I feel that I'm the stronger vessel in that. Now, you feel me? You got to look up to me. I can look down on you. I can do, and that's how a lot of the narcissistic relationships play out. Narcissistic relationships play out very, very smoothly when we're able to deal with the opposites attract thing. You feel me? Like most narcissistic people get with very modest people. You feel me? And break them down, completely destroy them. Why? Because you're complete opposites. You feel me? You're complete opposites. And that narcissism is intriguing from the beginning because it's completely opposite to what you are. Like, so, we always, a lot of people have talked about, I ended up with the narcissist. You didn't end up with a narcissist. You began with a narcissist. But you look beyond it, because that narcissism was in opposition to you. It was your opposite. You feel what I'm saying? So it brought you the things that you couldn't bring out of yourself. But because you never brought them out of yourself on your own, to see them through somebody else made you fall for it a lot quicker. And then the person just got comfortable with you. And then that neutralization happened. And boy, were you neutralized. You feel me? So when it comes to that, like, the opposites attracting, like that's like one of the cornerstones for a toxic relationship. Because like I said, toxic relationships never start off bad. Like, we can only see it in hindsight. Yo, this was bad. This. Why was it bad from the beginning? Because it wasn't your reflection. It wasn't the image that you was supposed to be looking for. You feel what I mean? You can't, like, when you're sane and you're healthy, you can't hurt yourself. You feel me? That's just logic. You're not going to bring harm to yourself in any way, shape, or form. But then people be like, yo, how could you cheat on this person if they were supposed to be your better half, whatever. That's all filler and that's all fluff. That's talk. You feel what I'm saying? You can't dwell on that. If a person doesn't see themselves and hasn't truly went through the steps to develop their own personal identity, their internal personal identity, not what they've been decorated with, not what they've conditioned to conform to, been conditioned to conform to. When a person comes to you in that light, you feel what I mean? They have to be 100% on point and they have to be themselves. If they're not, they're going to be whatever they think you want them to be. This is men and women. We both paint this picture. We don't want to be ourselves. We want to be what somebody else wants us to be. It's like you show me a little bit of attention and then it's like, okay, cool. Now let me see what you like. I face it a lot in regards to, like I said, people not being able to be themselves in relationships, because like women will come to me and, if I'm, engaging with a woman or whatnot, found her attractive, found her interesting, whatever the case may be. It's like, I'm trying to explore who she is. Like, I'm comfortable with who I am. I've learned to finally be that, over years of practice and shit. But now that I'm comfortable with being who I am, I always show that. But however the person meets you is who they think you are, and what that's the image that they create within their head for you, And so it's like women will send me things like, books and what you think about this, and I always want to know my thoughts because they think all I want to do is think about shit. The fuck no, like I enjoy life, so like when I do other things, they're like, oh, you've been acting ratchet lately. I'm not acting. I'm not acting. This is an extension of me. You feel me? I'm ratchet and regal. Like you don't meet me in a peace king moment and think I'm gonna stay in that peace king moment. You feel what I'm saying? Like that's the common thing. We find that one thing that attracts us to the person and we try to keep that on the focal point. Forget everything else that this person has got going on. Forget everything else that this person has been through or whatever the case may be. I'm going to magnify that and I'm going to keep that boxed in. This is what I like about you. This is what you have to multiply for me. You feel what I'm saying? And when we're not in tune with ourselves, we try to multiply that which the person sees the most because you like this. This is what appeals to you. And this will ultimately make you stay. This will ultimately make you stay with me. So forget everything else that I am. All these other things that we are, and then you start to see it when we piggyback on, go back to those 40, 50 year relationships. You feel me? You see how, the man sometimes will have illegitimate children, as they call them. He's cheated on a woman for this amount of times, and, but I still love him because I know there's still a good person in there. No, there's a good aspect that you held on to. There's a good aspect that you fell in love with. And that's what you want him to continue to multiply. He doesn't have to multiply because he's still a whole being. And you're not paying attention to who he's being. You feel what I mean? And so that's why, like, you talk to these older women, they're like, yeah, I put up with a lot, but we made it. Made it where? Where did y'all really make it to, bro? Like, you got to really consider that shit. And off the other side of that, too, you have dudes that have been with a woman for so long. It's just like, one of the most toxic concepts ever is happy wife, happy life. I get it. Some people have changed it to happy spouse, happy house, shit like that. But that's not what it is. Happy wife, happy life. That's some fucked up shit because now you can't live life just making somebody happy all the time. Feel me? You just can't. You can't make anybody happy because they have multiple feelings. You feel me? So that means when I identify, okay, this is a problematic for you. This is problematic for you. When I identify all of the things that trigger you negatively, you feel me? And I identify all the things that trigger you positively. I now have to only do the things that trigger you positively. That's very like, well, duh, that's, no, that's not duh, because that means I can't live my life, because there's naturally things that I'm going to do that have absolutely nothing to do with you. That is just a matter of me living that are going to trigger you anyway. But it's because you don't understand your emotions and your feelings that I have to dilute myself. Feel me? That's not healthy. That's not healthy. You see men who have lost their love for life off of that bullshit ass happy wife, happy life shit. You feel me? But like I said, all of that is based off of the initial toxicity that develops when opposites attract. Because when opposites attract, you find that one thing that makes that person like you the most. Then you multiply it. But the reason why is because you have not identified your own personal identity. So now your identity is going to come through this. There's so many people who I've seen been better people for the relationship. Like they're defined by that relationship. They're not defining the relationship. You feel me? And so in not doing that, and not knowing who you are, every relationship you get in is going to fail. It's going to fail. It's going to end. But at the same time, it's going to be successful in the sense that it's going to show you who you are. It's going to show you why you like this, why you don't like this, why this is a problem. And it's going to show you the difference between love and tolerance. When you learn how to truly love somebody and not just tolerate their flaws, they can never be flawed in your eyes, and you can never be flawed in theirs, thus keeping you from engaging in toxic relationships. And don't forget to take a moment to go get your exclusive merchandise from Just Scenes merch. At Just Scenes, each piece is specifically crafted with positive imagery and symbolism. From the titles and designs to the descriptions, each style gives you something to feel great about. With everything from hoodies and tees to coffee mugs and tote bags, we have something for the entire family. So be sure to get yours today. Find us on Instagram at Just Scenes merch and get your merchandise right now. Yeah, so like I said, this was pretty much a piggyback off of the chakras, but this shows the levels into what our relationships need to be. I feel personally like as children, we need to understand chakras. We need to understand this shit before puberty, before all this other shit happens, because I believe we'll be able to be in more fruitful relationships and not just going off of what somebody else says or anything like that. Going off what your heart feels and what your heart understands and what your personal identity calibrates you to. You feel what I'm saying? You know, a lot of times our relationships become toxic when we become stagnant. We become stagnant because we meet a person and we like them for one particular thing, and we want that particular thing to stay the same or even be multiplied. And that's not the case, because there is always going to be a growth factor in you. And you're not going to be that same person that they fell for. You're not supposed to be. If you are the same person that somebody fell in love with, did they really know who you were? You feel me? And this is what I mean by that. Like, life is an ever-going process. Life is changing. Everything changes and transforms and has its own season. You feel what I'm saying? So if the only thing that person should really love about you is the fact that you grow and the way that you grow. But if they like, okay, I like you because you're this. You feel me? Case in point, like, you know, I've literally had a situation like this. I've had a woman interact with me solely because she said I was smart. She said, I like how smart you are. And then she got upset when I did some dumb shit. Was it really dumb shit? No. I don't think it was dumb. It was what I felt like doing. But in her eyes, it was dumb shit. It wasn't like cheating or anything like that. But, you know, just putting things into perspective, it was like, you know, this is not you. It is me. It is me. I just don't show this part because this is what appeals to you. This was in earlier relationships. You know, this is why I'm like, I always tell people, when it comes to relationships, you have to be friends with people. In order to be friends with people, you have to know who you are to make friends. Otherwise, you just be friendly. And we literally build relationships off of being friendly. Again, just like I said, lonely and alone is a state of feeling versus state of being. Friendly and friends is a state of feeling versus a state of being. You feel what I mean? And as long as we're friendly with somebody, As you're friendly with them, you're always going to show your good behavior. You're always going to show the positive sides. Like, yo, this is my friend because of this. Then when the negative side comes, oh, that person's fake. That person's this. Nope, you just never knew them. They weren't your friend. They were friendly, and you were friendly with them. So of course you're not going to see the toxic shit that is developing because you only want to see the good in the person. We got to stop doing that, only wanting to see the good in the person and creating relationships only off of the good that we saw. Because the moment the bad shows up, it's like, oh, you changed. No, I got comfortable. Sometimes people don't even change. They just get comfortable. Sometimes they don't change at all. They just get comfortable. You feel what I mean? And if you're able to continue to be yourself, you don't have to worry about switching up. You don't have to worry about changing, but a person has to fall for you from the beginning. You feel what I mean? That's why when I go back to the concept of like mind, like body, and like soul, that's why that's so prevalent, because before you can even find somebody like that, you have to know who you are to know what you're looking at. If you ever look in the mirror and you don't know what you're looking at, like look in your mirror and you can't recognize yourself and you're like, damn, how did I get this far? That should be the same thing you look at when you see somebody else. The person that you're supposed to be in a relationship with, the person that you're deciding I want to spend the rest of my life with, the person I want to have children with. I need to be able to see myself in that person. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier about how any sane and healthy person can't help themselves. They can't hurt themselves, because if I see myself, I'm rocking with my personal identity 100%. And I see me when I see you. And I know I'm not going to hurt me. Therefore, I'm not going to hurt you either. But if I can't even see me when I see you, I can cheat on myself. I can cheat on you because I can hurt myself. I could damage myself. You feel what I mean? That's why it be bugging me. It be getting, it's like, and I understood this more when I started to see like people will cheat and then have babies. It's like, damn, I get it's fucked up to do that shit and to the person that you with. But then how much do you really feel about yourself? You just had unprotected sex with a stranger. You feel me? So sometimes we got to see the blessing in that shit. If a motherfucker cheat on you, yes, it's going to hurt. But then when you start to peel back the details and shit, and like shit happens like this, like, yo, you didn't even care enough about yourself. Therefore, you really didn't care about me. You feel what I'm saying? One of the biggest themes about toxic relationships when it comes to love is that they don't love you back. They just love that you love them. But what are you loving? Are you loving the aspect of them that they show you, that they want you to multiply to only see? This is my best trait. Or are they actually giving you all of them? The good, the bad, and the ugly. Chances are they're not, because so many of us have internalized that the bad side of us shouldn't be seen. Nah, you got to show your good, your bad, your ugly, and your beautiful. Because then at that point, if you're not showing your ugly and your bad side, then at that point, you're controlling that person. You're not giving them the choice to stay or leave. You feel me? But then, without the person identity, are you even built for them to stay or leave? Well, not even stay or leave, but are you built for them to stay? You feel me? These are all things that got to be considered. These are all things that toxic relationships develop from. Like I said, no relationship ends. Like it's not toxic at the end. It's toxic at the beginning. And then it comes to an end. You feel what I'm saying? But all of that can be alleviated by interacting with people who operate from your personal identity. Everything else becomes easier after that. You feel me? Not the ones that are just putting up the front, okay, I'm going to be on this behavior. Nah, that's why the friend zone is so freaking important. Put everybody in that motherfucker. Put everybody in the friend zone. Because then you start to see who's really who and who's not. You feel what I'm saying? Because everybody just wants to dibble and dabble and gallivant. That's all they want to do these days. Nobody really wants to be with a person because they have to be with themselves first. And nobody wants to go through that solitude. Nobody wants to go through that dark hour to be able to be with themselves. And so when you start to become yourself, you're not going to be in a toxic relationship anymore. You're not. Because when your personal identity is met, you'll find somebody who's operating from their personal identity. And then at the same time, if that shit does not stimulate your personal identity and doesn't go with it, you'll leave that shit alone. And you don't feel guilty about leaving it alone. You don't have what ifs about, well, if I would have just stayed, or maybe I should this. And can't nobody convince you to go back to some shit that's poisonous for you. Because you're like, from the jump, okay, I know what my foundation is as far as protection and provision, nurturing and sustaining. I'm in control of my feelings. You feel me? Therefore, I can't be triggered by little shit. So therefore, you cannot break me down, nor can you manipulate me. You can't break me down by constantly over triggering my negative emotions, and you cannot manipulate me by constantly stimulating my positive emotions. You feel me? So when it's my personal identity, it's just me. Can you keep me entertained? You feel me? And that's what it has to be. So with that being said, like I said, this was the piggyback off of the chakra energies and everything like that, because I feel like we need to understand our chakras, and we need to have that energy component maintained and understood before we started dabbling into relationships. And we got to stop getting in relationships off of root chakra shit. I like you. Do you like? This ain't middle school. This ain't middle school. This ain't elementary school. You feel me? Men are protectors and providers. Women are nurturers and sustainers. You can protect and provide. You can nurture and sustain. We can be together forever. No. The fuck is wrong with y'all? Like, the fuck is wrong with us? Like, but that's how society has conditioned us. It's generational shit passed down. Basic protection and provision, basic nurturing and sustaining, and then we're trying to build lifelong relationships off of that. You feel me? We're not building the shit off of personal identity of another motherfucker. Like, can I be with you when you are you? That's what you got to ask yourself, you know. But that being said, I'm gonna draw it to a close there. As always, you can follow me on Instagram at _just_seen_. You can follow the Just Seen Podcast for all of the latest drops and releases at the Just Seen Podcast. If you're looking to transition into the plant-based lifestyle, you can follow me at the Hitting the Raw program. Be sure to get the book So Frail, The Realities of Black Male Masculinity, So Frail 2, Toxic Femininity, and Hitting the Raw, Living the Raw Plant-Based Lifestyle for Life. Available, all books are sold. All the links are in the description to your podcast. Also, I do take donations if you're feeling generous. You know what I mean? You can click the link in the description as well. You know, donate, and you can also become a monthly subscriber as well to help keep the podcast going and moving in a positive direction. Going forward, just like take that time to really get to yourself and really understand you and develop your personal identity. Then go find the relationship, because chances are you're going to find that person who's just like you, and don't be afraid of it, because that will be the best friend. That will be marrying the best friend that you really want to have. And you go through the levels of the shit. You feel what I'm saying? You go through the levels of your shit. But understand those first third dimensional perspective of yourself, your root chakra, your sacral chakra, your solar plexus energy. Then dabble into the relationship life. Then dabble into that. Because then you'll transition from being lonely, which is sacral chakra, to being alone, which is solar plexus, and then you're able to be alone with somebody, and you can avoid toxic relationships, because now it's two people who are being themselves together. So with that being said, man, y'all enjoy y'all day. Hope y'all enjoyed y'all family and the time that y'all spent with your loved ones. If you celebrate, if you don't, whatever the case may be. But that being said, I will see you all on the next episode. Live, love, laugh. And y'all know my slogan: peace, love, knowledge, and freedom. I'm out.